Let it Let it
Good evening. Hello, Detox family. Greetings. Let me go to these comments. Good evening. Good to see you. Yes, Tate, let it out. We're in a safe place to do just that. All right. Thank you, Ashley and Camille. Thank you, Gwyneth Douglas. Thank you, Dominique. She says, good evening, Soul Detox fam. I'm a little tired too. I'll be asleep probably before 10 o'clock tonight. Liked and shared. Thank you, Ashley. Good evening, Coach Ebony. Crystal Adgers, Joycey. I actually can't stop thinking about last night. Chevelle, good evening, Tasha Ross. Pastor D, Sharita, Tanil, and Gentle Hands Academy. Welcome. Good evening, Roxanne. Diana, Nicole. Coach Maria, good evening. Priscilla, Nanita. Yvonne Ramos, good evening. Kamisha. Tasha Ross, Anna Roman, good evening. Charnette, Stacy, Keisha, and Dixie, good evening. Good evening, Jerry, Mike Tate, Gwen Molden, Pastor Ronnie, good evening. Shayna T, good evening. Best seat in the house claimed by Ramanita. Good evening, Prudence. Nicole Coleman, good evening. Cherie, welcome. Welcome, Jenny and Erica. Good evening. Sylvia Jackson. Good evening, Karen. Leah, Jeannie. Good evening, Nicole Nicholson. Danielle. Good evening. Good evening, Elisa, Gisela, Rhonda, Elder Manny, Brittany, Misha, Mo Gold, Tasha Ross, Candy Oates, Frederica, Balanced Living. Jessica, good evening. Good evening, Mimi. Good evening, Joy, Tori, Crystal, Ruth Baby Ellison. Lizzie, good evening. God bless you. Anya, good evening. Stacy Turner. Good evening, Shayland and Coretha. Good evening. Good evening, Lizzie. We got you. You can inbox us and we can have someone pray for you personally or just the shout out as you did now. We are already praying for you. All right. Happy birthday, Candy. Candy Oates. It's Candy Oates' birthday. Good evening, Doris. Good evening, Vanessa. Coach Latanya, good evening. All right, all those who became members today, God bless you and welcome. Diane Washington, good evening. Pastor Val, good evening. All right. Well. I'd have to ask the question, after last night, how are you doing? How are you doing? How's that list you're working on? How's that list? Can you tell me where on the list your name would have been before coming into the knowledge that we came in last night, that our list was actually upside down? Where on the list were you? Were you 3rd, 5th, 10th, or not at all? While you're doing that, I want to thank all of those who give from their heart. I want to thank Anna for her consistent contribution every night. Thank Tennille for her Cash App. Ashley, thank you for your Cash App. Thank you, Charnette, for your Cash App. Gloria, thank you. Patricia, thank you. Cam, thank you very much for your Cash App contributions. I am grateful to be before such wonderful people. Bottom, I was in the back burner somewhere, not even on the list. Good evening, Carla. Now I'm on the list. That's what counts. That's what counts. Good. I want to read, if you are a member of the Detox family, you can read this yourself on our groups page. If you go to your Wix app and open up the Wix app, and I don't know if you have any other sites that you belong to, but mine may be the only one show up, or mine may be a part of a few others. But if you go to the group page, there's some groups listed. And if you click So Detox 2022, you will get access to a lot of the posts that we share, the encouragement that we share, how great our children are doing, some of the epiphany that we're having during this time, our takeaways. And there was one that I read today that was outstanding. She moved me to such a joyful state of an emotional response. I want to share with you what her testimony is. After the Soul Detox class last night, my anxiety level was 100. Was anyone else 100? I went shopping and I bought $433.93 worth of clothes at Old Navy in Manchester. After I left the store, I got in my car and then I started crying, then screaming, then yelling. Then I walked back in the store and the lady looked at me and asked me, was I okay? I asked her, can I exchange these items? She told me yes. I returned all the items. Here's the point. Everything I was buying was for someone else in my household. Nothing was for me. I returned them all and spent every last penny on me. Capital letters, me. It's time for me to love me first. I think this one I'm going to end up framing, because this is exactly the response you would get when you realize that you were loving things and people upside down. That glass had to be turned right side up. All that time she thought she had the glass the right way, and the glass was the wrong way. Now she has a glass that she can drink from. And now she has a glass that she can share from, because the glass that she thought was right side up is now right side up. Very, very good. Thank you all again. Welcome to Soul Detox 2022. The road to self-awareness is a journey, and we are journeying together at this time. And I don't feel like I could be with a better group of wonderful human beings, soul detoxers, as this year. because every year gets greater and greater. So thank you. Thank you for your testimonies, your vulnerability, your transparency. Just thank you for coming in here every night when you end up getting these breakdowns. You know, the defense mechanism, the fall to compensation is shopping or eating or some type of drug or alcohol when you're being detoxed. And I thank God that this woman was able to recognize that she was falling into an old pattern, and she caught her old pattern and returned all those items and then spent the money on herself. Absolutely beautiful. All right. So we left off last night. Needless to say, self-awareness is one of the rarest of human commodities. I don't mean self-consciousness where you are limiting and evaluating yourself. I mean being aware of your patterns. That's a quote from Tony Robbins. Before knowing anything else, you need to know yourself. You need to know your weaknesses, strengths, beliefs, and desires in life. Keeping in touch with your emotions means you have to be self-aware. At its core, being self-aware means that you can understand why you feel the way you do and make decisions that honor your needs. This can include personal goals, boundaries, and relationships. Becoming self-aware is not something that individuals are always inherently born with. Instead, it is a skill learned over time. It is a skill learned over time. And that's why we are creating a habit, spending 30 consecutive evenings hammering away at everything that has come between you and your mental health, you and your self-care, you and your self-awareness, hammering away at this thing. We're just going to call it a thing for now. That's between living your best life. By being self-aware, you can move through life in a way that honors you, that honors your individual needs and emotions. Though this is a learned skill, it's a learned skill. We're creating a habit in 30 days that will become a behavior. Though this is a planned skill, this is a learned skill, some people may find that they come to it more naturally than others, and that's okay. Having self-awareness means that you have a sharp realization of your personality, including your strengths and weaknesses, your thoughts and beliefs, your emotions and your motivations. If you are self-aware, it is easier for you to understand other people and detect how they perceive you in return. While you develop self-awareness, your thoughts and interpretations will begin to change. This change in mental state will also alter your emotions and increase your emotional intelligence, which is an important factor in achieving overall life success. Improving your self-awareness is the first step in the creation of your ideal future. It's the personal commitment to yourself that you are ready and willing to upgrade your current reality. Anyone willing and ready to upgrade your current reality? Once you are more aware of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, you become empowered to make changes that serve your highest self. What I want you to do now that you have put yourself first on the list, I want you to envision yourself. I want you to start envisioning yourself every single day. Envision yourself every single day. I want you to visualize the best version of yourself. We talked about identity formation the other night, and what identity formation is, it actually asks the question, who am I? Who am I? And it's going to be so much easier for you now to answer that question. And not just because you have taken the personality assessment, that's another help, that's another tool, but because you are now first on the list. I asked a woman the other day who had taken her personality assessment, and we set up a coaching session with her. And I said, you met yourself. You finally met yourself. And she said, I have. And for her, she's just mind blown. Just the personality assessment alone has changed her life, has already course corrected and changed the trajectory of her life. She's blown away by it, not only by what it confirmed, but more so by the fact that it gave her this permission to be who she believes she is and not dummy down or play it safe. And that she's not going to be happy until she becomes who she really is. She got to know thyself. So in talking, we begin to share her ideal self. Who am I? The ideal self that reflects our hopes, dreams, aspirations. Speak to our skills, abilities, achievements, and accomplishments that we wish to attain. We all do. As you lean into your strengths to become the better version of yourself, you can use this idealized self to keep moving in the right direction and not to be distracted by setbacks and other obstacles. So add this to your list. Keeping yourself first on the list, I need you to take the time to visualize. Visualize the best version of yourself. Remember, identity formation. Ask the question, who am I? What forms our identity? Identity formation. What forms our identity is our beliefs. And I gave us just 3 strong beliefs to deal with. Beliefs about yourself, beliefs about God, and beliefs about the world. Those form who you are. And those are just 3 beliefs that I mentioned. Just 3. But begin to take the time to visualize your best self. What are your hopes and your dreams, your aspirations? Begin to speak to your skills, your abilities, and your achievements. And never forget your accomplishments, no matter how small they are. You have to have accomplishments. In visualizing your best self, your other self, the self that's evolving and opening up and being born. We don't want to say reborn because it's a new creation. As you begin to lean into those strengths, you will become that vision of yourself. It's not magic. It's not lies. It's fact. It's how it works. Once you have yourself first on the list and you start envisioning yourself doing things for you, what you need to change is asking yourself the what questions, not the why. I want you to leave the why questions when we're together. For yourself, I want you to just ask yourself the what questions. Leave the why for us together. At the core of your self-awareness is the ability to self-reflect. Self-reflect. How important is self-reflection? I think you all learned last night. A bomb apparently was dropped in your soul last night. And there was this great awakening, this great turning into, to know thyself happened to the greater majority of us on last night. So in increasing to continually work at this work that you've started, I want you to begin to ask yourself the what questions. We're just adding this to our list because at the core of self-awareness is the ability to self-reflect. However, there's a research group, the Keerìng group, and they contend that most people are going about reflection in the wrong way. The trouble is, we ask ourselves the wrong questions. In our attempt to resolve internal conflict, we ask, why? Yet, there's no way to answer that question since we don't have access to our unconscious. Instead, we make up answers that may not be accurate. The danger of the why question is that it sends us down a rabbit hole of our own negative thoughts. We focus on our weaknesses and insecurities. Just consider, just consider some of the things you want to do in your life. I often get messages, and this is on my list of things we're going to work on in 2022 in our live sessions, is public speaking. What hinders you from speaking up and having the confidence to speak up? So there's a great majority of people that have insecurities with speaking in groups or speaking publicly. So consider that, right? And you want to begin to explain to yourself, I don't speak up at meetings. I don't like speaking at meetings. I don't like speaking in front of strangers because I fall too low in the corporate food chain. No one's going to listen to me because I'm still new. No one's interested in what I have to say because I'm female, because I'm black, because I'm lower class, because I don't have the education that other people have. So we begin to go into this why people don't want to listen to me. Instead, asking the what question puts us into the objective and an open space of considering all of our real factors that are influencing a particular outcome. Let me help you. Let me indulge you. For example, instead of why don't I speak up at meetings, you could ask, what were some of the dynamics that were going on in the room? What was I experiencing in my body at the time? Body, physical responses, emotional responses that trigger a physical response has been a consistent pattern that we have spoken about every night for the last 12 nights. Because your body is a telltale. Your body wants to tell you there's something off. There's something I don't like. There's something going down. There's something that you don't agree with. You're not being honest. You're being dishonest. You are covering the real problem. You are in denial. Your body is physically going to give you signs. If you don't ignore them, it will cause you to make the changes and the corrections in your life that you want to much sooner. What happened that caused me to go into my old story, my old self-talk of not being good enough? What happened that caused me to go right back to it, that I'm not good enough? I've always been a failure. This isn't for me. I'm a what's the story I hear all the time from people? I'm a behind the stage kind of person. And then you find out, you put them up front and get a mic with them, they blow the room to smithereens in a good way. What can I do to overcome my fear of speaking? See, the what brings you into a forward moment and a forward momentum, which is what life coaching and mental health coaching is about. It's not about the therapy of it. It's not so much of the why question. Leave that for therapy. Moving forward with your mental health coach, we deal with the what. What happened that caused me to go into my old story and my old self-talk? What can I do to overcome my fear of speaking up? What was I experiencing in my body at the time? This type of introspection allows us to look at behaviors and beliefs for what they really are. With self-awareness, we can examine old patterns and stories that do not serve us. And then we can move on. Asking the right questions empowers us to make different choices that bring different results. For example, the same story that I gave that you maybe have a fear of public speaking or speaking in meetings. You decide to make a plan because now you understand that you have a chance at overcoming your problem. When you stay away from the why, and you deal with the what, you realize that you have a chance at overcoming the problem. You're going to end up finding out more about the content and goals of the meeting. Instead of going in the meeting and not knowing anything about it, who's going to be there, what's some of the topics, what went on at the last meeting, you can ask for an agenda or you can talk to someone who's close so that you can be confident. Confidence is very important in showing up. Even if you struggle in self-esteem, your confidence can be high in the work you do. Rather than being consumed by imagining what others are thinking about you, you can actively listen to what's going on in the room, meaningful questions that move the conversation forward. With a heightened awareness of the cues in your body's giving you cues, signaling fear and anxiety. You have to begin to name the emotion. And as the Bible tells us, cast down every imagination. Self-talk is imagination. And it's negative imaginations, negative self-talk. And the Bible tells us, cast down every imagination. So name that emotion that you are experiencing at the moment and choose not to be overwhelmed by it. Change the channel. Choose not to be overwhelmed by it. And that's one giant step towards self-awareness. Here's why asking why is ineffective. Research has shown you don't have access to a lot of your unconscious thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Odds are you're wrong about why you act the way you do or the way you think. For instance, you might have some harsh feedback come back from a boss, and you may begin to rationale it. It's because of all these other things about you, things that you've already heard about yourself, those tapes that have been playing all of your life. Or you might harp on some of your insecurities. It's hard for you to unbiasedly evaluate your strengths and weaknesses and come to a correct conclusion. So rather than asking why, highly self-aware people ask what. What questions are more productive and focus on objectives and future goals rather than past mistakes? We're moving forward. Ask what instead of why in the conversation with yourself, in the introspection time with yourself, when you leave that meeting, when you leave that store, and then you go back in and realize I'm returning everything. I'm really shopping to fulfill an emotional need that I don't even know right now, but I'm going to deal with that this week. I'm going to figure that out in these 30 days. What is this emotional need that I have? That I'm doing all of this to feel better about myself because what? Because I don't give myself permission to shop. I don't know if I'm a selfish person if I shop for myself. When people assess their current state, their emotions and their environment, they are all too often asked why. Why am I feeling so sad? Why did my boss give me that feedback? Why isn't my project going the way I hoped? Like I said earlier in our detox, why am I always the student and never the teacher? That's why is ineffective. It just brings you in a spiral circle when you do it by yourself. Ask the what questions and move forward into your future that's already waiting for you. It's important that you spend time with yourself. It's not easy to reflect on yourself when you've got the TV blaring and you're out to dinner with friends all the time, or you're glued to your telephone all the time. You have to spend time with yourself, but it has to be meaningful time. That's why I mentioned the other night, take yourself out to Starbucks. And I didn't literally mean it. I just mean take yourself on a date. I don't care if the date is in your room when no one else is home or they're all busy doing other things. Date yourself, because it's not easy to reflect on yourself when you're constantly around people. Those are also compensational needs to cover feelings that you have. You cannot reflect on yourself when you're always in front of a TV and the TV is blaring. You'll tend to know more about the things you watch on TV than you even know about yourself. And then that's why you're always hurt or defensive when people are trying to show you things about yourself, because you know more things about the people and the animals you watch on TV than you do about yourself. I'll let that digest. Stop being glued to your phone. Stop always filling your time with people. Stop always sitting in front of the television. Give yourself the space and time necessary to self-reflect, to make sure that you haven't slipped down that list and you are still number one on that list. You have to do this, and you do this by avoiding distractions. Avoid the distractions. Try spending some time reading, meditating, practicing some other activities that you can do alone to connect. And for some of you to reconnect with yourself again. Fall in love with yourself again. Get to know yourself again. Date yourself. Do you even know what you like? Do you even know if you're satisfied with yourself? Date yourself. Be sober-minded and deal with the real issues. Life is so beautiful when you're self-aware and you understand that it's not selfish or self-centered to put yourself first. And spend that time with yourself, that you have that time and that love and that joy and that peace to then share with others. Again, knowing your strengths and weaknesses. We talked last night using your brain. Not only do you need to know about how the brain works, you need to know generally how the brain works. You also need to know how your brain works, your patterns that we talked about. Ron Bonner. Very good, Pastor Val. Use your brain. Have you ever heard about the part of your brain called the amygdala? Amygdala. The first time I heard it was in an Adam Sandler movie. And I laughed about it. I didn't understand it. And then as I began to get deeper and deeper, and I thought I was just going to teach 1 year on what Soul Detox is and what it means. I didn't know it was going to become 7 years worth of education, information, and instruction, and now teaching others. The amygdala, also called the primitive brain. What is the amygdala? What is the amygdala? Let's make sure you got it. The amygdala. Oh God, now Erica's jumping on with Reverend Ron. I spelled it for you. The amygdala. What is the term that is used for the amygdala? Yep, primitive brain. Primitive brain. It was the first part of the brain to develop in humans. It functioned as a kind of radar, signaling the need to run away or fight back. It's where your fight or flight is triggered from. That part of the brain is skilled at anticipating danger and reacts before we can even name a negative emotion. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? The part of the brain is skilled at anticipating danger, and it reacts before we can even name a negative emotion. Our hearts are racing, our stomach tightens, and our neck muscles tense up. You ever have your neck muscles tense up so while you're eating or drinking? And they tense up so much that you and you think you can't breathe. You think you're going to choke. And sometimes you have to bring the food up. You literally cannot take control over yourself enough to get the food down. There's a fear that has come over you. And that's a fight and flight response. That's the amygdala kicking in by some message that's being sent through your brain. The amygdala, the primitive brain. And it is skilled at anticipating danger. And it even reacts before you have a chance to name how you're feeling. How do you know when it's being activated? Your brain starts stressing, your heart starts racing, your stomach tightens, and your neck muscles tense up. See, when you learn words like this, you can cast this down in prayer. Holy Spirit, I pray that you go in and you bring a peace and comfort to my amygdala part of my brain, the primitive part. Pray. Pray biologically, medically, scientifically. We have been given that authority. We don't just have to pray, our Father which art in heaven, give us this day our daily bread. And many people are leaving prayer and they're doing the namaste because they don't know how to pray. So they move on to the next thing and then they'll be off namaste onto something else. Your body's reaction is a tripwire signaling the prefrontal cortex to register a negative emotion. Your body's reaction is a tripwire. The prefrontal cortex to register or to name a negative emotion. If you bring awareness to your physical state right then, remember the other night I had a saying, now. Now, how is important is now. Now is mindful. I'm mindful of what's going on. I'm not dying. There is a bear, but the bear has not attacked me yet. And I'm already in fear. I'm already in flight. I'm already in a morbid mindset. Naming your feelings is critical because if you can bring self-awareness to your physical state, you can at that moment recognize the emotion as it's happening, becoming skillful as it rewires your brain. I sent an email blast out to everyone. If you have a chance, open up your email tonight. And I posted it on Instagram and on Facebook. Take a look at it. It goes with what we talked about last night, how you can actually start making yourself focus on things that are positive. What does the Bible say? Think on things that are good, things that are lovely, things that are worthy of praise, things that are honorable. He tells us, think on these things. And as you begin to make yourself focus and think on good things, things that are worthy of praise, you can actually rewire your brain to be more adept at focusing on good things like a habit. It'll be a new behavior for you. But you have to at least start the engine, start the work, get the system in process so that it can run automatically all by itself. You can literally rewire your brain to think happy thoughts. Check it out on my Facebook, my story, or either Instagram. And I think I emailed everyone in our group. But on Facebook story, I put music in it because the music went with it. I feel good. I want to feel good every day. And to some people, that may be hype. But literally, psychologically, it's not hype. It's hype when people are marketing it and people are buying calendars with it on there because they're not working the application. It's hype. But this says literally biblical, spiritual knowledge and psychological proofed in text. Naming your feelings is critical in decision making in your life. We let our feelings overwhelm us. Who are those that let their feelings overwhelm them? We let our feelings overwhelm us. And then it usually would lead us to make bad decisions with unintended consequences. Naming your emotions allows us to take a third person perspective, to stand back more objectively outside of yourself. Evaluate then what's going on. Let's bring this home. For example, you are a self-aware person and you're having a conversation with someone and receiving some negative feedback. Your heart starts to race. Can you picture the scenario? Has it happened this month when you went and you asked someone, what would they change about you? What's a consistent pattern they see in you? You went and you asked them for this information and you were nervous about doing it. Some of you probably still haven't done it because you're nervous about it. You have apprehension about it. You have an anxiety about it. So you go and you ask this person and you end up getting negative feedback. Your heart starts to race and you're feeling threatened. You say to yourself, I feel like this person is attacking me. But before you cry or go ballistic, lose your emotions, you stop yourself and you hear the person out. You discover that this person had at least one good point. They had at least, you got to be honest, they had at least one good point. And you digest of that as much as you can until you get used to this information. And then you gently start up another conversation, and one that is mutually satisfying and productive to the group or to the two of you that are having the talk. They'll know that you can't take any more right now because they'll be like, oh, you segued that conversation. Yeah, it's about all I can take right now. You know, I'm doing some serious work on myself, and I'm actively listening. You remember that one last night? I'm actively listening. So I'm taking on more information and emotion now in my communication with people, because I realize that there are some steps that I have to have in order to objectively make a comment when someone's speaking to me. Does anyone remember the steps? Let me see you post them. We're going to take a little pause right here. Let me see you post the steps if you remember them. What are the steps for effective communication, active listening? Understand. I think that's what you're trying to say, Tasha. Understand. What else? Y'all skimming through y'all journal papers. Concentration, understanding, responding, and remembering. Concentration, understanding, remember, and respond. Y'all see? Nope, it's more than one step. It's more than one step. That's right. It's 4 steps. Concentrate on what they're saying. Empathize with what they're saying, even if you don't agree. Then respond. And while you are responding, show that you remember what they were talking about. Even if you're asking them a question about it, show them that you listened to them and you remembered what they said. Good. I'm proud of y'all. I'm training some of y'all to be coaches on here. You can help. You can at least take clients who are coming in for career counsel and they want to have more proficient communication skills in the workplace. Y'all got it. You got the steps right there to help them. You have it. And now that you discover that the feedback doesn't have to be scary, ask other people how they perceive you in certain situations. After you shifted that conversation and you've been working this method, you know, after we get off this in 30 days, you're going to be on your own and you're going to have to fly out that nest, and we'll have check-ins. Hold me accountable to it. If I disappear for a little while, inbox us, inbox the coaches and say, hey, can we get a soul detox? I need my fix. It's been a week. It's been 4 days. It's been 7 days. Don't let me go months. Even though I get busy, we can work it out. But, you know, this is the purpose of what I'm doing here. Absolutely. And then when you get good at it, ask other people their perception of you. It's important. Now that you discovered, once you work those applicable steps, you'll discover that feedback doesn't have to be scary. Just ask other people once a year how they perceive you in certain situations. Make it part of your New Year's resolutions. Instead of losing weight and eating healthy and all that we need to do daily, not yearly, make daily. I'm going to find out how I'm doing. I'm going to get progress reports from people that I love and honor and trust. How do they perceive me? How do they perceive that situation that I ended up in with a relationship or a job situation or a church situation last year? Getting specific help will help to give you the most concrete feedback. Get brave and ask them how they would like to see you behave. Get brave and ask them how they would like to see you behave. Whew, do we need to breathe? Y'all all right? You're at the top of the list. This is how people at the top of the list are. They show up. All right, we're going to leave that part right there for the book. And we're going to go down here. No, I want to read another quote to y'all. Yep. Exhale. I want to read another quote. This quote is from Flannery O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor. And the quote is, I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say. I'll say it again. I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say. Flannery O'Connor. You don't have to write beautifully or even all that well to get the benefits of this. The simple act of organizing your thoughts on paper is often enough to give you more clarity about your thoughts and feelings than keeping it all bottled up in between your ears. Remember we talked about that? Keeping things bottled up in between your ears. It's better written down. It's better written down. This is all about practicing self-discipline. You need to practice. These are skills. You need to practice self-discipline. It's a trait that provides you with the enduring focus necessary. If you want to control your desires and impulses to stay focused on what you think needs to get done for yourself to successfully achieve your goals, you need to practice self-discipline. This will also help you develop your potential and improve your awareness, since self-discipline helps you form habits to obtain your goals in life. That's a powerful statement. Self-discipline helps you form habits to attain your goals in life. That's powerful. And we should do this every year. Psychometric tests. That's why we did this last year. We started doing assessments. We did assessments this year. Assessments are going to be a part of this every year. A small part, because I don't have the opportunity to be one-on-one with you to show you how to go into it, how to unpack it, how to apply it in your life, how to apply strengths in certain situations, how to see those weaknesses in other situations. So we take the real basic general assessments, and they're called psychometric tests. And there's plenty of these that you can take. They're in books and bookstores. They're online. It works better when you have someone to help you accountable. Otherwise, you're one of those people that just has so much information, so much data. It's heaping out your pores. No one can even have a conversation with you because it's just pouring out of you. Just read and information and data and you're just eating and eating and eating and information and just eating and eating it up. And it becomes porous. It begins to come out your pores. You're not even human anymore. You're not even talking about human things anymore. No one even enjoys being around you. But when you can be around someone that can help you apply these things to your life, where to use them, how to use them. The personality test the assessment that we took was powerful. The assessment alone has changed lives of people already. I have proof, verbal and written conversations, proof with a personality assessment has just changed lives already. This is important work that needs to be done for your mental health. And it all brings you into a greater level of self-awareness. We talked about having a prayerful life. That's very important. We'll talk about that towards the end. I usually take it more spiritual towards the end of this. We talked about last night how important it is to have effective communication, but also watching some of the things with communication, cutting people off. I caught myself doing that today in a meeting that I had, a 3-hour meeting today. And after a while, conversations for me, it's like, I just lose it. I think the introvert kicks in. It's like, I'm out, I'm backed up. Misha told me today that I literally just walked out of the room for one person. Like I just left. And I noticed lately I've had a habit of doing that. Like when I tap out, like I physically remove myself. And it's weird. It's kind of weird to me. And it can be seen as rude. But my mind is just done with the conversation. I can't take people who repeat the same lines over and over again. It doesn't work. Because I'm a seer. This is not an excuse. This is who I am as a person. I'm a seer. So when people are speaking, I'm seeing the words. And in some instances, I'm seeing the words form and create into some image. And when you say the lines 3 and 4 times over again, it's messing with the computer. And I can't do it. So to me, that's not effective communication. So I literally don't even notice myself. I end up leaving the room or walking out of a conversation, or at some point in the meeting, I'll pick up my phone and start looking at my phone. That is rude. But it's a communication that I've learned when my brain is just like, it's not making any sense to me. Amen. Okay, let's see. We're doing good. Let's deal with this one tonight. We need to identify our emotional kryptonite. While you all are writing that down, Isha, I'm going to just address your comment really quickly. How do you combat if you are an introvert? You really don't combat. You respect and acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you are an introvert, but you apply self-disciplines so that you show up in a way that's empathetic, that's understanding, that's remembering, that's concentrating. It's a skill. We're going to learn these skills. That's what we're working on these 30 days, okay? It's a skill that you're going to get. We're starting it out now as a habit, and we're working the skills to make it a habit, and then the habit can become a behavior. But honor the fact that you are an introvert. But an introvert is not an introvert 24/7. It's not good for man to be alone. So that goes against who we are as human beings. If people say, oh, I'm good by myself 24/7, then you've already lost your mind, because we are not made to be alone 24/7. Introverts just need their time and their space to be introverted to themselves, instead of extro. You have to, it's important for you. When you don't have that time, you will probably feel like you're coming out of the seams. You're becoming unglued, maybe a little less patience, maybe a little moodier. I can always tell when I haven't given myself that introverted time, that introspection time. I'm coming unglued as a person, and I don't even like who that person is, and nobody gonna be able to handle that person. So I need to go find me some time to stow away, like Jesus said. He had to go stow away, find his sabbatical time. So we have to apply these self-disciplines of active communication, whether we're introverts or extroverts. Okay? Because extroverts can sometimes take over a conversation because they're always taking over a room. So identify your emotional kryptonite. Identify your emotional kryptonite. Nobody likes to feel sad, anxious, ashamed, or any other kind of difficult emotion. None of us. This is understandable since they feel bad, sometimes painfully so. While we all recoil from painful emotions, each of us tends to have one particular emotion that we especially dislike and try to avoid. Some will go to extraordinary, sometimes even harmful lengths to distract themselves or numb out specific feelings of sadness, even if it means intensifying other painful emotions like anxiety, shame, and guilt. Well, Ashley, we have to learn that habit so we can use the skill and create a better behavior. Some people will go to extraordinary, and when I say extraordinary, I want to even say dangerous lengths. Some will go to extraordinary, sometimes harmful lengths to distract themselves or numb out specific feelings that they've had, and they've probably had all of their life. So they've learned to do other behaviors that can cause them to lose their families, gambling, sexual perversion, cause them to lose their marriage, drug addictions that can cause them to lose their entire household, extra affairs, other indulgent lifestyles, lustful situations. That's money and food, and that's all of the above. They will go to extraordinary, sometimes dangerous, harmful lengths just to distract themselves from feeling a specific feeling. What is yours? What is yours? Is it sadness? Do you go through extraordinary lengths? Eating, shopping, vacations, sleeping, medication? What is it? Specific feelings for you that you will go through to try to blot out. Remember, self-awareness, knowing our strengths and knowing our weaknesses. Is it sadness that you try to avoid? Is it guilt? Shame? Maybe you don't know the specific emotion, but the feeling of anxiety. So you go through extraordinary measures, sometimes dangerous and even harmful measures, so that you don't have to feel the anxiety, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, the pain. What is it? We all have it. I had a client who discovered that part of the reason he struggled with social anxiety was that he constantly worried that people were judging him. He struggled with social anxiety. Hi, Lizzie. Welcome to the group. I'm glad it is amazing for you. We're here for 30 days. We've been in there 12 already together. If you could go to the website, you'll see it at the end of the broadcast, www.suzannemhoward.com. On the first page, it says register. If you click register, you can be in the link, the post, the connections. You can get all of the assessments, the member profile, all the data will come to you. Other than that, you are free to do what Joycey says. Just be here every day at 8 p.m. But if you want to be involved in the family portion, you want to get the information and do some of the assessments and receive some free coaching for this month, then you want to go onto the website and register. Welcome. And we'll have it all up at the end of the night. And when the broadcast ends, I leave it up for a few more seconds for people who need to pass it on. But I had a client who discovered that part of the reason he struggled with social anxiety was that he worried constantly that people were judging him. Specifically, he worried that they could tell he drank too much and were judging him for that. When I asked him about his drinking, we eventually discovered that even though drinking was causing him a lot of shame and anxiety, to him it was worth it because it was the only way he knew how to distract himself from the sadness in his life. From the sadness in his life. Does that help bring you into a thought? What is it that you are doing to avoid feeling loneliness? Powerful one. Depressed, like a failure, like I'm doing nothing with my life. Every time I get this paycheck every week, it just reminds me how I should have went to school. I should have started my business. There was something that I'm probably going to post tomorrow. Let me read it to you here. A salary is a drug they give you to forget your dreams. A salary is a drug they give you to forget your dreams. Isn't that powerful? Because some of us who are entrepreneurial in spirit can 100% agree with that statement. Most people look forward to their salary. I work my 40 hours, my 50 hours. I get my paycheck. I go home. I don't have to work late at night. I don't have to work the weekends that I'm not scheduled to work. I don't have to be responsible when everything goes wrong. I don't have to be responsible when there's not enough money to pay for certain things. An entrepreneur has all those other worries to carry. But to us, a salary is what the world gives us to forget about our dreams. Drop the mic. When I read that today, I said, whoop, that post is going up tomorrow. Let me read it again. Look at the responses. A salary is a drug they give you to forget about your dreams. So when I asked this young man about his drinking, which he thought he was coming to move forward from in his life, but he didn't understand that his drinking, we had to go down that list that I gave y'all for free. We had to deal with the what. What causes you to drink? When are you more inclined to drink? When are you more inclined to not have a restriction, a limit on your drinking? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I have a problem. I don't know. And then finally, after a while, we were able to get in a time and a pattern. And it wasn't anything. This was the weird thing. His life could be going great. And then he would just go and drink. And what we were able to determine was it wasn't what was going on always. It wasn't always what was going on externally. It was going on internally. So his life was going great. He would drink. His life would be going bad. He was drink. So it was hard to tell if what was really so bad about his life, because it was a bad pattern. He didn't just have a couple drinks and enjoyed himself. It was to a harmful and dangerous level. So we begin to find out what was going on inside. Something triggered from the TV, a conversation with a parent, a bad dream. So let's just say something good was going on in his life, but he had a bad dream that reminded him of abuse when he was a child, or neglect, or how much he's never going to have his mother love him the way he needs his mother to love him. So he would drink. And it didn't matter whether life was good or bad. He would ruin his life, lose his loved ones. So we had to get down to that by dealing with the what. I am not a clinician or therapist, as I state almost every night to you. So even though anxiety was the obvious emotion he was struggling with, he eventually became self-aware enough to realize that sadness was the emotion at the root of his struggle. Sadness was the emotion at the root of his struggle. I very rarely treat drugs and alcohol, even though I'm a certified drug and alcohol counselor. I very rarely treat that. I go with the what's. We deal with the ruts. What is the what's? All right. So what am I saying to wrap this up? We all have certain emotions that we especially dislike, and it's called our emotional kryptonite. Is it when people reject you, gossip about you? What do you feel from that? What's the emotion from that? Go into that. And more often than not, that means we try very hard to avoid that emotion. And we may not realize that that emotion is what's causing us to have bad habits. For some people, it's the going to the job every day. They realize that the salary pays the bills. The wife is happy with the paycheck. The kids are able to get lunch and school clothes and Christmas presents with the paycheck. But this paycheck is nothing but a drug to me to keep me from my dreams. So some people will work hard and get drunk or use drugs or end up in very sexually dangerous relationship with prostitutes and the such. Anything to blot out what they're feelings. So anxiety was the obvious emotion, but he was struggling with. But we eventually became self-aware enough to realize that the emotion he was avoiding was sadness. I had another client, and he came in for anger management. He had to take anger management sessions so he could bring a letter to the court. And while we were in anger management, he didn't believe he had anger issues. He believed his ex-wife was setting him up for money and child issues. And his stories sound very convincing and legit. But I said, you know, I could give you the letter, but why don't you just come in anyway? You know, you've been through a lot with your ex-wife and you're dealing with a lot through court and it's affecting your current relationship. Why don't you just come in and talk? Let's just chat. Let's just use I'll type the letter up. I'll show you. It'll be right in your file. I'll give it to you on your last day. Just come for talk with me. And he came to talk. A year later, he's still a client of mine. And we found out that his greatest issue was a fear of failure. His greatest issue. His anger wasn't an anger problem. The anger was triggered because he was miserable on the inside because there was so much he wanted to do. But the fear, the thought of success would lead him to possible thoughts of failure. It would trigger this frustration in him that would be released at the slightest touch as anger. So, we could take him through the 12 steps of anger management that I do for court cases and such. But I was able to get him to sit with me longer to determine that his real problem was a fear of failure. So the problem is being so afraid of emotion, being so afraid of our emotions that we're willing to do just about anything to avoid them. And that can become some pretty negative consequences in the long term. But more importantly, by avoiding the emotion, we're avoiding listening to what the emotion has to say to us. Painful emotions are painful because our mind is trying to get our attention, often for a very good reason. Learning to tolerate the discomfort of our emotional kryptonite for a little while. Tolerate the fullness of it. Acknowledge that it's there. Honor that it has a right to be there because I'm disappointed. I was abused as a child. I lost my job. Honor the fact that it's there. Even if you don't want to feel that way, I shouldn't even care the way I care. Just honor the fact that the caring feelings and emotions are there. Because the feeling that you are most afraid to feel can unlock a wealth of insight about ourselves and our world if we are willing to listen. Let me tie the ends up to all of this. Now that you are first on your list, what are you going to write in your calendar to make sure that every month, every week, there's something on that planner that has you first? And to tie up these loose ends on tonight, what is the emotion that kept you from keeping yourself first on the list? Was it a learned behavior? Was your mom codependent to your dad? Was your dad a passive leader? And now you have this domineering or passivity towards yourself or towards your spouse or towards the opposite sex or whatever partnership you're in. What is the emotion that has kept you from putting yourself first on a list? Are you not proud of yourself? Are you so driven that your kids have to be better than you because you don't think you're better? Do you feel that your identity comes from your relationships instead of coming from yourself and from the image of Creator God? Think about the emotion that didn't have you up on top of that list before it becomes your emotional kryptonite, or if it has already become your emotional kryptonite. We want to help you disarm it so that it can no longer be your kryptonite. Keep yourself first on the list. The road to self-awareness is a journey, and we're going to continue this journey for the rest of this month. I'm here with you. I'm your mental health life coach, and I'm here to journey with you until we become so self-aware that we can identify every emotion we're feeling instantly, and we can describe ourselves in better layman terms than the personality assessment itself. All right, family, I've got to go. We all need to get a good night's rest. We wrap up this week. Do we wrap up this week tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow's Friday. Let's go knock Friday out. Put on something super powerful. Stand like you're Superman or Wonder Woman. Take that day by control and do something awesome for yourself. Because not only do you deserve it, but you matter to yourself and to so many others. We wish above all things, I almost made it. We wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. God bless you. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Thank you.
Let it. Let it